Okay, so this is take two. I'm not sure if I'm gonna put my flop up that I tried to do the first time. But what happened was I tried to do this before, got sort of to the centering part, and then realized that I had a huge air bubble right in here. And that's just from incredibly bad wedging. I hate wedging. I will quicker take clay right out of the bag and turn it into a brick because I tend to have to do things too quickly. I probably should learn from the art of pottery that when you rush things, it fails. So this is my response to a couple of you guys' comments. A lot of you guys are talking about how you had a hard time getting taller than 2 to 3 pounds. It flops, or you just can't get all the clay in there. What I'm curious to know is if that flop is happening because you're trying to shape it, or you're just having a hard time getting it up. Sorry, having a hard time getting the clay up into the pot. That's why I don't write that my videos are good for kids. Okay, so I'm gonna lock my hand in. I'm gonna center this this is probably about 5 pounds now. It started as 5.5 before my flop. Here's some of it. So my wheel's not going super fast, but I am locking in over here. I'm gonna take my pinky and my ring finger and I'm gonna make them real tight, and I'm gonna scoop up the bottom. Again, I'm not going super fast because speed helps you do the things that are hard to do. What speed will also do is if you do something wrong, it will extra mess up what you're doing wrong. So to cone up a larger piece of clay, I just go a little bit closer to about 70% the speed. And my goal is a cone. My goal is not a long skinny rectangle. We want this base wider to handle all the stuff that we're doing on top. Now, why do we cone up the clay? We cone up the clay because we want to take this 5-pound ball of clay and reduce it into smaller parts and center the clay from the top to the bottom. So I'm going to hang up here. Now I'm going full speed. I'm going to pretend that the wheel head is right here. I'm locked in. I'm floating in the middle. I'm going to start to go down with my top hand and in with my back hand. Slowly take off, and now that's centered. I'm going to go down a little bit more. Try and get that spaceship to go right back in there. Slowly take my hands off, and now that's centered. Now we want to make sure that this doesn't start bulging out too soon. You're going down, and now we're going to push that back in, down, and push it back in. When I increase the size of my clay, I increase the size of my tools. So now I'm actually using this whole part of my hand to control the clay, and I'm using this whole part of my hand to control the clay. Now as I get closer to the bottom, my bat is getting a little wonky because one hole is bigger than the other. What I did explain in my last video, and I'll explain it again in case you don't watch my last video, I take hard clay. The soft clay is already mushy, so that's not going to really help with the movement of the bat. And it's funny because it doesn't feel like it's moving. So what I would do is I would take hard clay, break it into pieces, and stick it in there. And while that clay is dry, it's going to give me the time to center before it becomes malleable. So it's sort of a race against science. So now I'm going to go down in here, and I'm just going to go ahead and center that bottom part. Now, if it is starting to wobble because the bat's wobbling, what you want to do is just like you had a floating center up here, if you're pushing down and in down here and the bat's moving back and forth, all you got to do is pull that left hand back a little bit, create a new floating center, and slowly take your hands off, and it's centered. I always like to start with a right angle over here. That right angle is going to make you get all that clay into your pot. Now, I think one of the biggest mistakes that happen and why we're not able to use all of our clay is that we don't open up the inside wide enough. We want to open it up wide enough so that we can really scoop down in there. If you can't get your hand bent to get inside, you're not going to get that inside pressure. So you're going to be putting just outside pressure. You're going to lose the width of your pot. You're going to end up pushing all your clay here, and you're going to leave a lot down on the bottom. So what we want to do is we're going to use 2 thumbs and our entire stems of our thumbs to open up. So with full speed, I'm going to start to go down, and then my hands are going to start to get dry. Don't rush it. Take your hands out, add some water, start to go down again. Now I'm pushing my elbows into my thighs, and my upper arms are into my upper body, and my pinky and my ring finger are actually pushing down on the bat. That's keeping me as still as possible. Start to go down and come up. Now when I'm trying to get all the clay in there is more of like a practice. I don't want a foot. I don't even want to think about a foot. I want to use all the clay. So now that I've got this sort of V shape, which now I don't need the bat to be so securely in there. So now that I've got this sort of V shape, I can now get 3 fingers in there so I can open it up. Again, with larger clay, we increase the size of our tools, and our tools are our fingers. So now wheel moving fast. This is the tool, not just your hands. 2 fingers inside, wheel moving fast, 3 fingers, and you're gonna pull straight towards you. And you wanna open up so that the clay hangs over a little bit. If you let that clay hang over a little bit, but not to the point where it goes past the clay that's under it, but hanging under it, that's gonna allow you to scoop in there. My inside is wide enough so that I can get my fingers curled, so I can really grip that clay, squeeze it from both sides, and then squeeze it so it goes up. If I was to show you what's going on the inside, which I will, you probably will be shocked to know how wide I opened that up. So I did open it up probably about 5 to 6 inches, and the outside is definitely about 6.5 to 7 inches. And it's okay if it sort of hangs out here. Now, the first pull that I do is I call the corrective pull. It's my own word. To me, I'm just correcting the unevenness of the clay. So right down here, it's thinner. Here in this butt area, it's thicker. And then here, it's thinner. So I'm gonna put almost no pressure down here, lots of pressure here, and then no pressure up here. That's going to start by dictating how thin the wall is gonna be to start down on the bottom. Too many people leave all that clay in the bottom, and then they keep on pinching the top, and now their top is already so thin that you can't do anything down here, because as it spins around, those thin walls on the top start to give in to gravity. So I'm gonna go down here, and I'm gonna slow down my wheel. Remember, we were opening up really fast, and now we wanna slow down to about 60 to 70%. Full sponge of water. With bigger clay, I use the sponge as fingers. I don't risk my fingertips doing anything funny. I'm gonna get underneath there. My inside hand is scooped. My outside finger just doesn't do anything because it's crooked and broken. So I get in here, I hang out down here for a couple of pulls, and now I start to go up. Super important to make sure that you aim towards the center above your pot so that both hands end up here. Both hands, not just one. So what I've just done is now I will tell you, you can't touch it through the camera, but right now my pot is about 3/4 of an inch all the way through, even up here. Very often you guys are putting so much pressure down here where it's an inch and it becomes 3/4 of an inch. And then this started as a 1/2 inch, you put the same pressure, and now that's 1/4 of an inch. So what's really important at this point is to compress that lip. That's gonna make sure that your lip doesn't get too thin. I'm gonna dip, I slow down my wheel just a little bit, I get under that clay, and I start to scoop. Now the next important thing that I'm doing that's helping me really build up those walls is my inside fingers are curled, they were locked, like that. See how dirty that is? This is where my fingers are touching, and I'm scooping, I'm squeezing. This inside hand, if you make your inside fingers just go straight, that's gonna push the clay out. Look at the shape of my fingers. That's gonna push it out into a bowl. And again, I'm aiming this way. Compress that lip, wet everything, get down here again, scoop underneath. Notice that my hands can't touch each other, but as long as I don't talk too much in between the pulls, my left hand remembers the stability until I can come out to touch that other hand. And now I start to go up to the top and compress compress that lip. Now, if you notice, I'm still not past here. I'm still working in here. The minute you come out here, it's gonna start to give into gravity. But let's say you do start to go in here. Let's talk really quick about collaring. So collaring is a fast, wet thing. This is where we really wanna use the speed of our wheel to help us. Now, a couple of ways you can collar. You can collar with two hands like this. When you see people do this, you wanna have your hands attached like this, and you're also not using your entire hand. You're not using your entire hand. You're really just using the sort of center part right here. So if you use your entire hand, you're gonna be touching all the different clay that should be treated separately with an entirely too big of a tool. Next thing you're gonna do is you're gonna go super fast and super wet. So I keep throwing water on me. The other thing I'm gonna do is sort of wrap around, my thumbs are touching, and I'm gonna start to go up. And now it's gonna look wonky, you're gonna get really nervous, really nervous, really nervous. You're like, that's not round anymore, but if you gently come off of the top, oops, the centrifugal force will actually straighten it out. Get the water out of the inside. Another way of collaring is 6 points, thumbs, knuckles, and fingertips. Start down on the bottom, super wet, elbows locked into your body, and start to go up until you get to the top. Get the water out of the inside. So now what I've done is I've stopped it from sort of giving into the gravity and giving into the force. Now down here is a little thicker, so I'm gonna do a little bit more work. As mentioned in my other Brown Bear ones, I'm unsure as to how much I can push this, so I'm gonna be a little conservative just so that I can really show you guys sort of the end result without messing it up. Notice that my inside hand is a little above my outside hand. You can actually see my finger right there coming up until I get to the top. And now my top is pretty much my desired thickness. So I really want to start to pay attention. I'm going to get one more pull down on the bottom. I'm going to try and get that clay underneath there. And I'm going to travel up and see what happens despite my wobble there. Now you can tell from my finger marks that I am getting a full revolution because those finger marks are straight. So the inside down here, when I went to push, sort of slipped. I'm just going to get down here and sort of correct that a little. That'll be for another video as to how to do that. I'm going to leave those finger marks so you can really kind of see what's going on there. I also like finger marks. And compress that top. Okay. So I'm going to call it a pot at this point. I'm going to take my wood tool or my plastic version of one. I'm going to go down in here, get rid of that. Pin tool attached to it, slide it right underneath, stop, make that go away. So although I am redoing a lot of my videos, some of the details of, trimming the bottom and using the pin tool, I'm actually not going to repeat that for everyone because the people who listen to every video really don't need to hear me give you that sort of basic instruction 400 times. So that's where you can kind of go back to more of the basic videos. All right, so this was 5 pounds. I probably lost a little bit in the that trimming at the end, and then with the mess up that I did in the first video. So let's talk about how tall this is. I need my glasses for that. So we are looking at, Brown Bear makes it harder to see it on the ruler, 8.5 inches by 5.5 inches. And then let's go ahead and take a look at the inside. Okay, we could have went a little thinner. Either way, again, when I start using standard 112 again, I can push it a lot more. So again, my fingers, this might help a little bit actually. This is on the outside, this is on the inside. Notice that my fingers are curled. I'm using my fingertips, not my fingerprints, and I start to go up. Now you can notice that you're never taking clay from down here and bringing it up here. You're squeezing this so that this jacks up. So as I start to pull up, fingertips, not fingerprints, I could have gotten this up to at least probably 10.5 inches if I would have really been a little bit more aggressive. So the main part of what I'm saying is you want to work on the inside of the territory that your clay is living in. You want to be wide enough so you can get your fingers scooped in there to really pinch the clay, to jack the rest up. And you want to loosen up when you get to the top because you don't want your top too thin. The minute that lip gets thin, the speed of the wheel is going to start to flare out. So let me know in the comments about if you need, I'm going to do another one, but if your struggle is really getting the clay up or shaping it when it's larger. I would have at this point then shaped the clay. A big mistake that a lot of people do is they'll start to shape the clay a little bit sooner than their walls have been constructed. So there you go. Again, thanks so much for subscribing, and thank you so much for the lovely comments welcoming back. They made me cry. Have a great day.